What's going down, everybody? It's your boy, That Guy Mile High, tuning back in for another reaction. And this time we got 3 downright horrifying thunderstorm horror stories. And yeah, you know, it's that time of year. Everybody's dealing, shout out to Florida, you know what I'm saying? Everybody down there dealing with the tropical storms, not just Florida, but Cuba as well. All the, you know, that southern, you know, island and Floridian, you know, not all them tropical storms and hurricanes and shit y'all be out to deal with, man. That shit ain't cool. But shout out to y'all, you know what I'm saying? I know y'all used to it, and this one's probably just another one of them days. You know, it's just another day for y'all. But to me, that would be I would be terrified. I'm just saying. But anyways, let's jump into this, man. 3 downright horrifying thunderstorm horror stories. Let's see what they talking about. Let's go.
Every once in a while, I like to go what I call minimalist camping. It's basically the type of camping where you only take what is absolutely necessary to survive. It's definitely not for everyone, but I see it as a fun challenge. I mean, oftentimes I won't even take a tent.
I'm not going camping by myself. I like to go camping, but I'm not doing it by myself. I did exactly this over one June weekend. I was alone and in the middle of the forest. Now, it wasn't like a campsite. I usually try to stay away from those. I much prefer a completely uninhabited part of the forest. And I'm definitely not going to do
some
that
random
by
spot
myself.
on the side of this forest road. I'll then walk out at least a mile and camp where I'm stood. Or sometimes if I find a small body of water, I'll camp next to that. Anyway, it was the first night of this specific trip. By this point, it was already dark. I was laying down next to a fire I created with a small fire starter kit that I had brought when it started to rain. Now, again, I didn't have a tent. I would not be able to last the night in the rain. To make things worse, I checked the weather for the weekend the night before, and no rain was shown. I guess that just goes to show how inaccurate those predictions can be. It was only sprinkling, but I knew if it got worse, I'd just have to call the whole trip and go home. Of course, it did get worse. It started absolutely pouring out. And to make things even worse still, thunder and lightning both started going off nearby. So I packed up what little I had and started jogging back to my car through the dark forest, only lit by a dim flashlight I had in my hand and the occasional lightning flash. Fortunately, I made it back to my parked car relatively quickly. In order to see anything in front of me, I had to put the windshield wipers on their max setting. I had about 10 to 12 miles on this secluded and narrow 2-lane road in the forest with no streetlights before I would make it back to a main road. I was only about 2 miles in when I rounded a corner and saw a Subaru with a small trailer parked diagonally across the road. The way in which it was parked completely blocked me from getting by. I couldn't even go off the road to get around it because there were trees on either side. I wasn't able to see inside the car, so I turned on my high beams. This revealed a man slouched over in the driver's seat, his head uncomfortably resting on the steering wheel. From the looks of it, he was completely unconscious. Just then, lightning struck. The flash revealed another man just out of the view of my headlights. He was outside, laying face down on the road in some puddles. He too looked unconscious.
Bruh.
An immediate sense of unease overwhelmed me. The scene was too perfect.
Right, that's what I was just, bro. I was just thinking that same thing. Like, this shit sounds like a movie. Like it's a setup. Like this was planned. Like everything is too perfect for this right here, bro. Like, nah, bro. They like you got this is hills have eyes. Like you getting set up, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Blocked the entire road
you getting set up, man. You better be careful.
And everyone involved became unconscious. I was seeing a lot of red flags.
Right.
I had always heard stories of people playing dead in the middle of the road as a way to lure unsuspecting people out of their cars for some sinister purpose. I decided I wouldn't know part of this.
Rode around and called the police.
I began reversing to find a spot where the trees gave me enough room to make a 3-point turn. My eyes kept darting back and forth from my rearview mirror to the Subaru. Just when I got back far enough, I turned my head back towards the Subaru one last time, and my blood ran cold. The man that was in the driver's seat and the man that was lying on the road were now both running full speed towards my car.
Oh, yeah. See, that's that shit, bro.
Jumping out of the trailer and proceeding to do the same. There had to have been at least 5 or 6 guys all running towards me. I was still completing the turn.
And you ain't
When they
got
got
the
close
gat
enough,
with
they
you?
started aggressively yanking on the door handles. But I had them locked. I threw it in drive and barreled out of there. I was forced to take a longer route back home. For that drive, I swear I had my eyes on the rearview mirror, checking to see if I was being followed, more than I had them on the road in front of me. When I did get home and had a second to calm down, I called the police. Though they didn't find anyone or even anything matching the descriptions I gave. And I'm not sure anything's gonna come of
that
it.
night, man, you was
I
trying.
didn't
Somebody
get a
was trying to
license plate
kidnap you.
number,
That
and it was too rainy to make
off
out
the
any
grid,
facial
bro.
features. Something I did take note of, though, is from what I could see, they didn't have any weapons. Rather, they had stuff like ropes, handcuffs, and tape.
Oh yeah,
You'd
see,
think
they
people
was
doing
trying to
this would
they
just
was
wanna
trying
rob
to
you.
eat you.
And admittedly, that's probably how it goes for most of these cases. But I truly believe this time was different. I don't know what they wanted to do, but something tells me it was worse than being robbed.
Yeah, that's terrible. Yep.
The house I
That's why you
grew up
don't
in
go
was very
camping in the
large.
back roads by
My
yourself,
bedroom
bro.
was on the second floor, and its window overlooked the driveway and neighborhood street it was attached to. At the time, my bed was placed almost right up against this window. I was around 15 or 16 when this happened. Both of my parents were out of town on some vacation, and I have no siblings, so this meant I was home alone. As a teen, I tended to stay up late, sometimes doing homework, but oftentimes browsing social media or texting friends. It was somewhere around 4 a.m., and I was doing just that while lying in bed. Now, I have to mention, it had been raining with the occasional distant sound of thunder for pretty much the whole night. And being on the second floor, it was pretty loud. But even this didn't drown out the sound of what I can only describe as slight knocks on glass. Like I mentioned earlier, my bed was right up against the window. The sound was right next to my ear, so naturally I assumed it came from the window. To be completely honest, it sounded very different from the rain hitting the window. But I told
Sounded like
myself
somebody
I
knocking
was
on
on the
that
second
shit.
floor. It had to have been the rain. I mean, what else could it have been? So I sat there and completely brushed it off. Fast forward 30 minutes, and I was still awake lying in bed on my phone. All of a sudden, I heard the all too familiar humming sound made when the garage door to the house is opening. I was more confused than anything. It was 4:30 a.m., and here I am lying in bed while the garage door is being randomly opened. I figured something with the electricals must
If
have
my
been glitching
garage,
because
if
of the
my
storm.
garage door ever started opening randomly by itself, oh yeah, I'm coming down. Look. Most of the time, the master bedroom is usually above the garage. In most cases, I'm bucking shots through the floor, bruh. Bow, bow, bow. You know that you ain't even gonna play no games, bro. I'm just gonna start shooting through that bitch.
So I got out of bed to go and shut it again.
Fuck that.
I made it about halfway down the stairs when I stopped. In the corner of the kitchen, I could see some figure wearing all black and crouched down. But I couldn't tell if what I was seeing was real. I stood there for probably 20 more seconds, waiting for the next lightning strike to provide enough light to see. My heart sank. It was very clearly a person, but I couldn't tell if they were looking in my direction or not. I decided rather than making a run for it, I played off like I forgot something upstairs. I patted my pockets as if I was looking for my phone and turned around to go back up the stairs. When I got to my room, I shut the door, locked it, and pushed my dresser in front of it. Immediately after, I called my dad. On what had to have been the last ring, he picked up in a groggy voice. I sternly asked him if anyone was expected to show up to the house, because someone was downstairs. Sounding more concerned this time, he said, No one's supposed to be in the house. He told me to stay on the line while he called the cops using my mom's phone. I didn't hear anything in the 7 or so minutes it took police to arrive. But to be fair, it was still raining really hard, which drowned out a good amount of the noise. As police were searching the house, they found a grimy-looking man hiding behind a set of boxes in the basement. In his possession was one of our large kitchen knives and one of those garage openers you put in your car. As it turns out, my dad's car was broken into while he was at work a few months back.
Damn.
And included in what was stolen was, of course, one of our garage openers.
So that dude went back.
We never found out who was responsible, but I guess now we know.
Yeah, now you know.
How we actually found which garage it went to, we have no idea. We also don't know what he planned to do that night while I was home alone.
He followed him home. That shit is creepy. Like, the fact, like, that's always been, like, one of my fears, too, man. Like, losing a garage door opener or a key or something like that, and then somebody, like, coming and finding that house. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because the chances, in most cases, when you lose something like that, like, you don't have to worry about somebody, you know, figuring out where it goes, right? Like, if you just purely lost it, like, it wasn't just stolen, like, you just lost it, misplaced it, whatever, like, most times you're probably okay. But, like, when you know someone took it, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to change everything. You know what I'm saying? All the locks got to be changed. You better change all the alarm codes, like, everything. Just change it all up. You know what I'm saying? Everything.
Outside of an old house I used to live in 8 years ago. The house was a few miles outside of a small town with very little people. And because of the location, the house had no neighbors whatsoever. You could say it was in the middle of nowhere, because it pretty much was. In front of the house was a road, and in the back was a forest that continued for miles on end. And it was empty. There were no trails, no one was living there, no reason really for anyone being there. I was 26 at the time, and was really into filming and photography. I particularly liked night photography. One night, there was a thunderstorm outside in the distance. The air was humid, but it wasn't raining. Being into photography and having a pretty decent camera, I thought I'd try to capture some of the lightning. I needed everything around me to be as dark as possible for the best shot, so I moved the camera set about back behind the house where there was less light, specifically in a spot where I'd have a clear view of the skyline. The house had this fairly small metal fence with a gate, which I guess marked the backyard. Only about 50 feet from the gate was the tree line of the forest. I sat there inside the fence for maybe a good hour and got some pretty good shots of the lightning strikes. There was almost no wind, and the only sound you could hear was the occasional thunder rumbling.
Hold on. One thing I would sit here and say is I'd be scared to be sitting outside with a tripod and a camera, and you know what I'm saying? Like, that sounds like a conductor, bro. Like, you about to be hit by lightning. Like, you setting yourself up to get struck.
I felt the urge to relieve myself.
Let me just throw that out there.
I opened the gate and walked over towards the tree line. I was standing there for maybe 30 seconds. I was almost done when I heard something. I couldn't make it out at first, but I remember I got a strange feeling about it. It did not sound natural. I stood still, looking into the forest for a few seconds, but I couldn't see anything. The clouds had moved more towards the house by this point, and it had now begun to drizzle. I turned around towards the house, as I had to get my camera equipment inside to keep it from getting wet. But just as I turned around, I heard the sound again. This time, it sounded like leaves rustling under footsteps. Again, I stopped for a second. I thought I had actually heard breathing now. Like, really close to me. My eyes were still adjusting.
You better run. You better hightail it out of there, man.
Strike lit up the sky. I could see for a brief second. Some figure was stood perfectly still, just feet away from me, slightly behind a tree branch. It was just looking into the ground. The only thing I remembered was that I ran, jumped the fence, and went into the house so quickly that I didn't even notice I'd scratched on my leg pretty bad in the process. That's when I realized I'd left all of my camera equipment outside in the rain, so I forced myself to go back out there. The whole time, I kept my eyes fixed on the tree line, looking for any movement. I grabbed the camera and backed into the house before locking every single door and window.
Bruh,
that night, I didn't sleep very well.
I bet not.
A few hours after I'd gotten into bed, I again heard the sound. Footsteps, this time walking around the outside of the house. I didn't move at all. I stayed as still as I could. Come morning, and that was it. Nothing else happened. I never heard or saw anything again after that. I still have no idea what I saw that night. No one should have been out there. I mean, again, all of this happened in
Saw the
basically the middle of
chupacabra.
nowhere.
Something. Shit.
This was by far the scariest thing that I experienced in the
I don't
20
know
or
what
so
you
years
saw,
I
but
lived in that
goddammit,
house.
I wouldn't want to have that experience myself. I'm just saying. Y'all let me know what y'all thought about that down in the comments below, man. Out of those 3 thunderstorm horror stories, which one was the most creepiest? I think, in my opinion, probably the very last one. I think that was very appropriately ordered. I think the last one was probably the most creepy. You know what I'm saying? Because, well, man, I don't know. That one, and I think with that first one, when he was the camping one, man. See, at least the one where the dude, like, just lived in, like, the woods and shit, like, he got to run into his house, and you know what I mean? Yeah, no. Cause his house was in the creepy woods and shit. No, that's still the worst. Cause at least old boy in the car, he was in a creepy situation, but he was able to drive out of it and go back to civilization and not be a part of that creepy shit no more. So yeah, the very first one was scary, but the number one of this little video series, the last story we just heard, was probably the worst. Yeah, that'd be the most creepy. Anyways, y'all let me know what y'all thought about that in the comments below, and I'll catch you on the next one. You dig what I'm saying? Peace.